If you want to know how to get a record deal, you need to watch this video. What's up, guys? Brandon here from KDMR Music, the channel making you a more successful musician. Now, if you're new to this channel, we do videos every week about music marketing. We give you music business strategy tips, and we break down really common questions in videos like this one. So if you're interested in that type of content, all tailored to help you grow in your music career, then hit the subscribe button, then hit the notification bell so you don't miss out. Now, if you're new around here, I'm Brandon. I'm the founder of KDMR Music, author of the Music Marketing Guidebook, host of the Music Business Dreams podcast. I've been in the music industry over 10 years now, and I've been growing this community for the past 4 years of independent musicians who are looking to be successful on a broader scale. And one of the ways that I do that is a Facebook group called the Indie Club. It's free to join. I'll leave the links below. The most common question that I get from people trying to join the Indie Club is, how do I sell more music? And then the number two question right after that is, how do I get signed? So I figured it was long overdue. This video is about record labels, how to get a record deal. And we're going to dispel some myths. We're going to talk about some things because really the conversation's long overdue. So let's go ahead and get into it. First, before we talk about how to get a record deal, we should probably back up and talk about what record labels are and what they do. Now, the year is 2020 as I record this video, and the role of a record label has changed a lot since, you may have become familiar with them way back in the 90s when music was at its peak, right? So, a record label. A record label traditionally is the company in charge of manufacturing, distributing, and marketing music so that it reaches the widest audience possible, so that it gets radio airplay, and so that ultimately the music makes money. So traditionally, a record label acts most like a bank. A record label may give you an advance and they say, hey, this is your recording budget. If you need anything else, let us know. We can give you allowances. And basically, the record label funds the production of the music. And you, as the artist, of course, you get a little bit of a kickback because of that, for your services as well. Traditionally, it's been super lopsided where the label gets the lion's share of the earnings and you survive a little bit on your royalties depending on how successful you are. Now, in recent years, the role of a record label has changed a little bit. They still perform the same functions, but the only difference is that there's a lot more competition now, because it used to be that the only way to be successful was to have a CD in stores. Well, we aren't buying physical CDs anymore. We don't need to be in a store to be successful. You really only need to be in the iTunes store. You need to be on Spotify. And there are companies, there are services that exist, such as CD Baby, DistroKid, TuneCore, United Masters is a newer one. Services that will help you get your music onto these platforms. And there are even services, we call them artist services companies, that will help market your music to fans. They help you take advantage of all of the direct to fan marketing things that are out there. This channel, my channel, exists to help musicians market their music without the use of a record label. That's primarily who I target. I talk to independent artists, I teach them how to find their fans, and I teach them how to sell music directly to fans. So it's absolutely possible to build a career in the music industry without being signed to a record label, but there are still a few reasons why you may want to sign a record deal. And we're going to get into those. So now that we know what a record label does and what their job is, let's talk about why you may want a record deal. So again, right now we are in the age of the internet, the age of crowdfunding, the age of kickstarting. Like, there's so many platforms and opportunities that are available to musicians now that were not available to musicians just 10 years ago. One of those being distribution. right? Distribution is way easier because instead of having to get into physical stores, you can get into online marketplaces, iTunes, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. And you can do that with relative ease. As long as you put up the money, you can stay in those stores. Now, one thing that you're going to need a record label for that they're still the best at is if you want to be a really big star, right? If you want an international presence specifically, record labels are still really, really good at that. Because again, it used to be that record labels were really the only people who could market your music to a mass audience. And the record industry is not just about record labels. There are publicists, booking agents, there are music supervisors who help get your music on TV shows and movies. So there are huge amounts of people that are connected into the recorded music industry, and record labels have the biggest Rolodex or contact list, address book, right? So if you are looking to make connections at the highest levels of the industry, a record label is your best bet at doing that. If your music has a more mass market appeal, then yes, a record label is certainly for you. And then another reason that you may want a record deal is just because running an independent music business is not as easy as it may seem. Sometimes you may think it's just, oh, I just got to put my music on iTunes and leave it there. Well, no. And if you've been following this channel for any amount of time, then you know that there's a lot of work that goes into marketing your music, keeping your social media presence up, keeping your fans engaged, running your online store, fulfilling orders, merchandising, contacting people to help do shows and things like that. There's a lot of work that goes into managing a music enterprise. And when you become an independent artist, you're really becoming a business owner. And not every artist is really cut out to be a business owner, right? Or I shouldn't say that. We can all own our property, our intellectual property, and it's a great thing to do. A lot of us aren't cut out to being managers, to running a business. Of course, we got into music because we're more on the creative side, right? We don't like the drudgery. We don't want to be accountants and things like that. So if you're someone who has built up your career to a certain level and you're just like, man, I can't keep doing this. I would like to be able to focus more on the art. I want to just deliver it to the label and have them do the rest, right? Then yes, maybe a record deal is a good thing for you to do or to consider, right? So we've talked about if you want the highest level of appeal, if you want an international presence, if you want to be the next Beyonce, Taylor Swift, Drake, Lil Wayne, whatever, you're going to need a record label to do that, because a record label can really do well at establishing you in markets that you've not yet been exposed to. So if you want the highest level of reach that an artist can get, then you need a record label. If you want someone else to manage your business and you're comfortable with farming out certain responsibilities, then a record label might be good for you as well. So those are really the only scenarios. You can't say, oh, I want a record deal because I don't want to do any work. I mean, there's always going to be work to do. Even if you've got a record label, there's still going to be press junkets that they want you to do, press runs. They're going to want you to appear on shows. They're going to want you to be active on social media. So a lot of the job that you would have as an independent artist, you've got to do some of those same things as a major artist as well. But you might just having access to the capital and the resources that a major label can provide you can maybe give you some time to just rest, right? Think of artists like Kendrick Lamar, who, may release an album every 2 or 3 years, and they don't do a lot of touring, but they're surviving well. That's because he's got a great stake in his music, and it sells well enough to allow him that time. But if you're an independent artist, chances are you are not selling like a Kendrick Lamar or a J. Cole, certainly not a Beyonce or an Adele, right? So those are the situations in which you may want to pursue a record deal. Now, let's talk about what would make a record company interested in you. Well, first thing a record company is going to be looking for is music that they can sell and sell easily, right? If you are a conscious rapper who doesn't talk about anything controversial, who, doesn't do the mumble rap thing or doesn't have a lot of melody in their music, you probably are going to be a hard sell for a label at the moment, right? We can think of all the lyrical rappers, Talib Kweli, uh, Mos Def. I mean, these are household names, so they're probably not the best examples. But for everyone who's kind of broken through, there are millions of other just kind of lower tier MCs. But my point is, if your music is not marketable to what you would call the lowest common denominator, right? People who are on their afternoon drive, who are kids on their way to school. If you don't have music that's catchy, that sticks in people's heads, that makes them feel good, that distracts them from what they're doing, and gets them really hype, then unfortunately, you're probably not a good bet for a record label, because a record company really acts a lot like a bank. And if you're going to a bank and you say, hey, I've got this great business idea, I need a loan. Well, the bank wants to loan money to people because they know that for everyone that they loan money to, they're going to get a return on their investment. They're going to get interest. Well, if you say, hey, I want to build a donut shop, but I want to build it right next to this bakery, then it's probably not a good idea. It's not going to make as much money as it could if it were a standalone, and the bank may not want to market, or the bank may not want to give that loan to you. It's not because you're not a good baker. It's not because your donuts aren't good. It's because it's just not going to sell as well. It's not going to be as good of a return on investment for that bank. And that's the same way a record label is, right? A record label wants a product that can sell. And what's even better is a product that is already sold. If you've been, selling CDs out of the trunk of your car, if you have been, racking up huge playlist placements on Spotify, then the labels are going to come calling, because they know that you are an artist that's already marketable, right? Think of people like Lil Nas X, right? His song Old Town Road, he wasn't signed when that song got big, but they started seeing it making waves on TikTok and on streaming service, and they're like, hey, we'll give you a record deal. He signs to Columbia, does a remix with Billy Ray Cyrus, and now we're off to the races, right? So record labels want to know that they have a product, or that you have a product that they can sell. And what is even better is if that product has already sold, right? So they want you to be about your business. They want to know that you know what you're doing, that you're making music that people enjoy, and that you have a fan base. A record label is no longer going to find you in some smoke-filled club and say, she's got potential, and then sign you to a deal. No. Now, some sleazy promoter may sign you to his production company and then try to shop that to a label. And then you end up in a situation like some other people that we know who have been in these really archaic contracts, and they're trying to break out now that they're bigger stars, right? And that's what we've seen in the case of Meg Thee Stallion. But initially, a record label is not going to come find you unless you've got something going on. So you want music, first and foremost, that is easy to sell, right? It's not something that's like, I don't know if I want to listen to that. It's like, no, man, I love that song. That song is so catchy. That girl's got this look, whatever it is, right? Then you want a product or an artist who's about their business, who's already shown that they know who their fans are and they know what they want a label to do for them, right? So those are the two main things that a record label wants from you. But then also think about this. When you are pursuing a record deal, or you're pursuing a relationship with a record label, it's not just you. It's the other people that you've got working with you. If your best friend has been your manager, you better hope your best friend is a good business person, because he's got to take those meetings with those record label executives. Remember Dame Dash and the Def Jam offices? I rest my case. So if you want a record deal, you need to get serious about making quality music, right? Music that sounds just as good as the music on the radio. And whether that's the mixing, the songwriting, the production, your music's got to be up to par. It's got to sound like what's already out there, or it's got to sound as good quality wise as what's already out there. You've got to be able to sell it. You've got to be able to sell yourself. And you've got to understand that this is a business, right? Now, things to look out for. Don't sign a 360 deal if you don't have to, right? Make sure that you have negotiating power. If you've already sold and you can prove that you've sold a bunch of units of your music, then you've got leverage. So don't take the first deal that's offered. Make sure that you understand the business. Pick up a couple of books. A great one is All You Need to Know About the Music Business by Donald Passman, and that'll help go over some record deal points that you should be familiar with. Another one is How to Make It in the New Music Business by Ari Herstand. That'll help you navigate everything up to signing that record contract. And make sure you get a good attorney, a good music industry attorney who knows about contracts, who knows what's standard and what's not, and who has your best interest at heart. If you've got all those things, then you are well on your way, and good luck to you. Super excited to see how you make progress in your music career this year. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments of this video. Again, you can join us on the Indie Club. It's a private community on Facebook. I'll leave the links in the description below. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss the next one. Until then, keep dreaming, work hard, and make those dreams reality. Peace.